Today I'm going to talk about one of the greatest magicians ever. He created such name and fame that even after 100 years, we still talk about him as if he's still alive. Yes, I'm talking about the one and only Harry Houdini. This book, written by one more very famous magician, the great Milbourne Christopher, talks about Houdini, the Untold Story. Written in 1969, it tells us how Erik Weisz became Harry Houdini. It gives us wonderful rare imagery of the early shows of Harry Houdini and of course, what made him really famous, his escapes. How he was always repeatedly tied up in different contraptions and how every single time the king of handcuffs escaped them. But what I want to talk about is something very specific. Among his prison escapes and other things, while he became very famous, one of the things that made him really famous is hanging himself upside down, completely tied up on the tallest, longest buildings. Like this is a picture of the Washington Monument and Harry Houdini being hung upside down, completely trussed up in chains, locks and ropes and escaping from it, while thousands of people stood there and watched. I find that very fascinating. I want to talk a bit more about it using one of Houdini's own favorite props, a piece of rope. Harry Houdini, quite short, but a man of tall stature, would go up one of these tallest of buildings. He would stand there, arms extended, head held high. The local celebrity, maybe the mayor or maybe the police commissioner, would come and they would ensure that Houdini had his hands inside those handcuffs. And they would ensure that those handcuffs were tight enough that there was no escaping for Houdini. On top of that, they would then take long lengths of steel chains and truss Houdini all over his body. And once they had done that, they wouldn't stop there. They would ensure his legs were tied and even his neck was tied. And so you had this wonderful image of Harry Houdini hung upside down on one of the tallest of buildings, like the photograph we saw of the Washington Monument. You had these hundreds and thousands of people below looking up at Houdini and going all in their mind, will Houdini escape today? Or is today the day he fails? And here was this image of Harry Houdini hung upside down on this tall building, and as people looked, he sort of reached an impossible state and they thought, today Harry has met his match. But hey, Erik Weisz did not become Harry Houdini to stay bonded. He was a free man and so would do one of another of his fantastic escapes so that his legacy lingers. And of course it has. All the way 120 years on, we still talk of Harry Houdini and his escape stunts. If you want to know more about Harry Houdini, I would highly recommend that you look up Milbourne Christopher's Houdini, the Untold Story, written in 1969. If this is very difficult to find, there are a couple of new books that you could look at. The Life and Many Deaths of Harry Houdini, written by Ruth Brandon in 1993. This is one of the most wonderful biographies of Harry Houdini. But Houdini was not just a wonderful magician and escapologist. Harry Houdini was also we realize now, one of the greatest propagandists and publicists. Houdini himself wrote books like The Secret of Houdini, which put into people's minds and even magicians' minds as to how he did his wonderful escapes, be it the milk can escape or the escape from the prison or hanging upside down from the Washington Monument. This book, the most recent one on him, written in 2006 by William Kalush and Larry Sloman, talks about the secret life of Houdini. how he became indeed the greatest mystifier of the world, and how he created a legacy, he engineered a legacy that we still talk about without really knowing. A man who went viral for real. I hope you enjoyed this little presentation, and I hope it interested you enough to learn a little more as to Harry Houdini. Have a great day.